Hey, what's going on? I'm Devin, and this is another voiceover tutorial to help you improve at the craft and business of voiceover. As a follow-up to my last video where I talked about the more technical aspects of audiobook editing, link below, go check it out, I wanted to stick with the same topic and start pulling at some of those threads I hinted at before. Now, we've talked about where to look for audiobook work. We've discussed efficient ways of recording and editing yourself. This time around, we're talking establishing a schedule and submission of your audiobook to ACX specifically, as well as some miscellaneous tips about the process. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, scheduling, that's boring. And while I do get that sentiment, the fact of the matter is you're going to need to adhere to deadlines regardless of the type of voiceover you end up doing, and committing to a schedule is a necessary part of that. Procrastination is not your friend, and as I've said many times in the past, audiobooks take a lot of time to create. A lot of time. And on top of which, there are going to be things about this process that you may not have thought about yet. So let's start at the beginning. You've been submitting auditions like crazy, and what's this? You just got an offer. That's amazing, congratulations. Now what? ACX is going to give you a limited amount of time to review and either accept or decline the offer. Either 24, 48, or 72 hours, depending on the terms that the rights holder decides. I've already talked about the types of compensation you'll encounter, either royalty share plus, or a per finished hour rate. You should already know what type of project this is because they'll have stated that up front when you went to submit the audition. As for the actual offer, in my experience, the contract is going to be pretty standard, likely boilerplate ACX stuff. All the same, make sure you review the terms, specifically the compensation and the deadlines, plural. For the sake of argument, let's say everything's agreeable and you accept the offer. The next step is the rights holder is going to send the manuscript to you. Make sure you read it quickly and thoroughly. You want to read it through quickly for content, while also noting down any questions at all you have about the pronunciation of names, character tones, styles, attitudes, accents, anything at all like that. ACX is going to encourage you to reach out to the author with questions. Do so. You want to make sure that this is acceptable on the first pass and save yourself headaches and revisions later. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you're on the same page about everything. As I mentioned, ACX has more than one deadline. Two, in fact. A 15-minute checkpoint and the final submission. But wait, what's the deal with the 15-minute checkpoint? I thought you already got the job. Well, yeah, you did, but ACX and the rights holder want proof that you can handle more than just a 2-minute audition. Remember, this is going to be an audiobook, as in long form. It's a different beast. This checkpoint needs to be representative of what the final audiobook is going to sound like. Up until now, running ACX check in Audacity is more of a guideline than a rule. Your auditions don't actually need to meet ACX submission standards. That all changes with the 15-minute checkpoint. Everything from here on out has to meet those submission standards, otherwise you can't submit it. The amount of time you'll have to deliver the 15-minute checkpoint will vary depending on the contract. You might have a few days, it could be a couple weeks. In my opinion, your best bet is to start at the beginning and then just start recording as if you're going to record the entire audiobook and then just keep going. Once you submit, the rights holder will have the opportunity to review what you've done and either approve it or contact you with changes that they require, at which point the entire process repeats itself. The amount of time you'll have to record and deliver the full book will vary. However long you get, you'll want to budget your time efficiently. You'll have the estimated hour count from the start, but don't go off of that. Go off of page count. Also, you're going to want to give yourself enough time to not only record, but to edit and, crucially, listen back to it all to catch any errors you missed the first time through. In fact, make sure you give yourself at least a week at the end of this process to listen back to the entire audiobook. Of the time remaining, you're going to need more time to edit than record. Probably a 2-to-1 ratio, if not more. It all comes down to how efficiently you can edit yourself. At this point, you'll have a rough estimate of the number of days that you can allot to each phase of the audiobook. Then it's just a matter of dividing the number of pages by the number of days, and that's the pace you need to work at to finish on time. For example, let's say you have 10 weeks to narrate a 250-page audiobook. The last week is just going to be listening back to it, so you really only have 9 weeks to do the work. 3 weeks recording and 6 weeks editing, or thereabouts. That works out to 84 pages per week recording, 42 pages per week editing. You can do the math yourself to break that down per day. It's a tight schedule, but entirely possible you could run into something like that on ACX. Now that's just one example and one way of doing things. You could choose to alternate recording and editing sections and work through the entire book concurrently, whatever works best for you. A couple other pieces of advice. Make sure you're keeping your files named and organized sensibly, and make sure you're regularly backing your files up to an external device just in case of unforeseen equipment failure. When it comes time to upload everything, ACX has a file manager that's pretty straightforward to use. It'll be set up for the number of chapters indicated by the rights holder, but you can add chapters, subtract them, rename them, move them around, whatever. At a minimum, ACX requires that your book have opening credits, closing credits, at least one chapter, and a sample that's between 1 to 5 minutes long for people to preview on Audible. As for the credits, ACX will suggest something that you could say. You could keep it as simple as the name of the book written by the author's name, narrated by your name. You don't have to get crazy with it. And assuming you've been using ACX check all along, the file manager should have no issue with the quality of your MP3s. Keep everything organized, and once you have everything submitted and arranged the way you want it, submit it for review. Simple. It then goes to the rights holder for review, and if they approve it, it goes to ACX. Pending ACX approval, the book then goes live for sale. It's possible that the rights holder may want you to make some changes, in which case they'll kick it back to you to make those changes, and then you can re-upload and resubmit, at which point the process repeats. And that, friends, is how you plan and submit your audiobook to ACX. Pretty straightforward, right? As long as you take the time to determine your schedule and you stick to it, you should have no problem hitting those deadlines. And that's going to do it for this edition of Audiobook Advice for the Voice Actor. If there's anything about audiobooks I haven't covered yet that you're dying to know about, post it in the comments below. And while you're at it, like my videos, subscribe to the channel, etc., etc. It all helps, it really does. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time when I cover some other voiceover topic, which I haven't decided yet, but it's going to be good. See you then.